You're listening to The Novice Experience, a podcast that explores the opportunities and challenges commonly encountered by students and young people. I'm Calvin Chan, and chatting with my guests, I'm going to take a deep dive into their meaningful stories, the lessons they've learned, and how they can inspire others. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Novice Experience. I'm your host, Calvin Chan. Today, my guest is Kwan Fung. He is an engineer in training and a graduate of Bachelor of Applied Science in Mining and Mineral Processing Engineering from the University of British Columbia. He's here today to talk about his nonprofit organization, Mining to Me. Hi, Kwan.
I
How's it
am
going?
doing good. I am looking forward to the Christmas holidays. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a different year this year in 2020, but I mean, your organization, has been a nonprofit for a couple years now, and we're here today to talk about how you're going to grow the mission of your organization. Now, mining to me is sort of like educational organization that aims to transform the public's perception of mining through engaging animated
hmm
infographic videos. So you really have an online presence where you're reaching out to a specific age group of people, and you're trying to educate them on what mining is all about and how it affects our daily lives. But before we go into how you started the organization and what's your goals moving forward, we want to learn more about you. So Kwan, I'd like to start with an origin story. So a brief story on where you were born and raised, and what are some of the defining moments that make up who you
Yeah,
are
for
today.
sure. So I was born in Vancouver, but I actually spent maybe around 5 years in Hong Kong when I was young. I think from 2 to 7, 2 to 8, roughly. And then I moved back here into Vancouver. And some background for the listeners: how Calvin and I met was through the Royal Canadian Air Cadets program. Um, Yeah, so that's where we
Hmm.
met. But actually, that story of cadets actually tied into my journey of how I transitioned into mining, because there was this course that I took. It was over in North Bay, Ontario, and for that course, during one of the field trips, we actually went into a mine, an underground mine. It was just like a test slash museum mine, not an actual operational mine. But that was one of the experiences that triggered my interest in mining, along with just my curiosity on earth sciences, and just just very curious about how mining is done, like from the technical side, and also on the business and social side on how it impacts society. That's always been a curiosity point for me. And so yeah, I enrolled
Hmm.
in engineering at UBC and then specialized in mining engineering. And then in, I think, my third or fourth year, I entered the Move Mining competition. And that competition was to change the public's perception of mining. And that's how mining to me was born, in short.
Right. And we're gonna get into mining to me in a bit, but I have a segment called "Give Me Five." It's a rapid fire question period where I ask you five questions, and then you don't have to elaborate in your answer. You can explain whatever you want, but it will help us learn more about who you are, Kwan. So the first one is, what's a city you wish to visit?
So in 2020, I was supposed to go to Hawaii. That was a place I wanted to go to.
Oh,
So obviously
yeah,
going to be put on hold. But yeah,
yeah,
Hawaii would be one.
for sure. It's a good sun destination, especially in our field of work in engineering, and for you specifically in mining. Definitely a good
Yeah.
vacation place to go. um, describe yourself in three words.
Curious, driven, and I don't know if there's a one word for this, but like lifelong learner. I'm not sure what one
Oh
word
yeah,
would be
yeah.
for
I
that.
know, I know what you mean. For sure, yeah. Like, and those are three really great traits for, engineers. What's one thing you're most
I
afraid
guess
of?
just not having the opportunity to try to actualize my potential.
Yeah, for sure. I think There's some other guests in previous episodes who talked about, not having enough time, or having the time, but you're not following your true passions or your true interests. So that definitely is one thing, like for all young people, that should be on their minds, just working towards really chasing your dreams. Um, this is the fourth question. And who do you admire the most?
I think I admired Elon Musk because he
Okay,
has
yeah.
he like not only is he killing it in so many different industries, but he has this really great vision of how he wants to transform the world into a better place. And just
Hmm.
the sheer amount of focus that he's putting into all his different projects is just like amazing. It's unbelievable for me.
For sure, like his work is life changing for a lot of people, and for society in general. So I can't wait to see what's in store in terms of his projects and companies. Okay, so the very last one, um, if you could have an unlimited amount of
It's
something,
a
what would
good
it be?
question. It's definitely between like time and money. I guess
Hmm.
money can you can do things faster, but money with time you can do more things. So I don't know. I guess if you ask me right now, I definitely would want more time to just focus on building mining to
Yeah.
me, building out my different platforms. That's where what I would go
Hmm.
with right now.
For sure. Okay, and speaking of mining to me, I want
Nice,
to get into that,
nice
right?
segue.
Uh, yeah, I know. A lot of people, a lot of young people, they want to go, earn money, or they want to start their own business. They're really into entrepreneurship. And you started an education nonprofit organization. What inspires you to try to influence how people see your profession, specifically in
Yeah,
mining?
so I remember distinctly when I was second year in UBC. Actually, no, wait, maybe it was my third. Maybe I don't remember as clearly, but I remember there was this interaction with one of my friends from. I went to high school with him, but he also went to UBC. And then he asked me like, "Hey, Kwan, what is it that you actually do in mining?" Because he just heard that I came back from a co-op turn. And I told him, "Oh, I do like mine planning, design mines." And he asked me like, "Oh, do you happen to like just use like a pickaxe and dig stuff?" And I'm like, "No." Um, so it seems like that people don't really have an idea of what mining is. And that's okay
Hmm.
because the media and the mining industry itself historically hasn't done much to portray what mining is other than all the catastrophic failures and incidents that occur in mining. So that's
Right.
one of the, I guess, origins. But also, as I've gone through the mining engineering degree at UBC, I just realized that there's so much more to mining in terms of how it affects our society, not just in terms of the raw materials needed to build our society, to build all the electronics, transportations, and everyday things that we use, but there's also this business and societal impact. Um, Not just because I guess for us in first world countries, we're a little bit removed. Typically, our influences from mining is just the products that we use, but for some people in second or third world countries, um, it's actually their like sole source of like income. And so if you,
Right.
yeah,
An economy.
economy, maybe even to an extent social status, and for these
Mhm.
countries, like they probably live a lot closer to the mining sites. So it's a lot more involved and intricate, uh, woven into their society than us. So I just thought that was very interesting, and I think that the world should know more about this because we are a world that's
Mhm.
depending on mining, and I guess as we transition to a green energy future, we're gonna depend on it a little bit more to produce all the, for example, like electric car batteries. But also as the world's population grow, we're like the second and third world countries they're gonna have a faster growing middle class that's gonna need a lot more raw materials to sustain their population development and to build infrastructures like um, like electrical powers, roads, like trains, cars, you name it, right? So I just thought that
Mhm.
there's a lot to the mining industry, and I think that if people know more about the industry, they could either a support it or just really understand like how mining affects them and the world around them.
As our world becomes more industrialized and in urban areas, people are farther and farther away from the mining sites, and the media portrays it differently, like what the actual mining industry is like. What are the adverse effects of people not understanding it
I think that like people
properly?
just paint the mining industry in one broad stroke as it's all bad. But
Hmm.
in reality, I think that there's a lot of, I guess, great initiatives that are happening within the mining industry to either protect the people working in them or to protect the environments that they're working in. But also, it could lead to loss of interest in investing in mining. Um,
Right.
and so, for example, like for countries that are not just, I guess, heavily dependent, but like a large portion of their GDP comes from mining. If you take that away, then you would see the country lose the economic benefits of mining. And sometimes maybe
Hmm.
that's a good thing for countries or companies that aren't doing mining up to like a high standard. But for countries that are, that has a high standard of mining that adheres to all the highest social and environmental protocols, I think that that would be damaging to them.
Right. And what are some of the most common misconceptions of mining?
I think it would be the exact three things that we want to target. One is the usage of mine commodities. So maybe not exactly a
Hmm.
misconception, but people just aren't exactly aware of how much of our daily lives relies on mine commodities. Two, that mining is this old archaic industry that uses a lot of handheld tools and it's not safe. I guess, and as I mentioned before, like it's hard to, or I guess it's not correct to paint the mining industry in one broad stroke. I won't say that mining industry is all encompassingly like advanced and safe. It really depends on, for example, like where you're looking at in the world. I think like for example, like first world countries or yeah, first world countries should probably have like safer mining companies and more advanced technologies. There's always artisanal miners, which I didn't know about until I did my degree at UBC.
Oh,
That
cool.
that would use
Yeah.
a lot less safer tech. Um, but
Hmm.
mining industry, at least the big players, they're doing this big push and using Industry 4.0 to make their mines safer and
Hmm.
more efficient. So that's what I would call the second group, and the third group is the environmental conservation side of it. So I think like what most people
Right.
think of when they think of mining is like all the toxic waste, which is a part of mining. But there's also lots of good initiatives that are trying to reduce the waste that's happening. Um, and I think that um, there are lots of other issues that people aren't even aware of, such as the energy and water consumption, which I think that at least I hope that more people will focus on because that energy and water consumption side is going to play a huge effect on I guess global warming in general.
Right. That's really interesting because I feel like we talk about sustainability and environmental initiatives and how technology will transform that, but we don't actually reach the point where we're talking about how we need mining, like it's a necessary industry to help us transform the way we do things right now that will become more sustainable. Do you agree with that?
To an extent, you still need to be
Mhm.
mining responsibly, um,
Right.
and I guess like the downstream side would be like how people consume, and what those like end products are used for. That's always going to be a component as well. So it's not just mining itself, but what you decide to do with the mined products.
Right, understood. Okay, I want to get back to sort of the organization Mining to Me itself. You aim to do engaging animated infographic videos, and you're on YouTube and social media platforms like Instagram. Could you tell us a little bit more about the mission of the organization? So, the age group that you're trying to reach, some of the what are the topics of the videos that you're putting out, and what is the end goal of these videos? Are there any specific metrics or goals that you're trying
Okay,
to
so you
reach?
asked quite a few questions there, so I'm just gonna tackle them one by one. So I think the first one was
Hmm.
the audience demographics. So that would be at the time, like back when we started this, it was age 18 to 34. But I think we're gonna narrow it down to focus a little bit more on just university students, because I think that because university students, they've already chosen a specialization. Then for us, we just need to, uh, I guess, adjust our messages or focus on a specific topic, and then use that to market to those specific group of people. So
Right.
university students, they're like this clearly defined group of people. And one thing where we could bring value to them, in addition to our educational parts, is connect them to industry. Um, so I think that's where we want to go in the future. We're still pretty young, so
Hmm.
we're still, I guess, constantly readjusting. Personally, since I'm from Canada and most of our volunteers are from Canada, we'll probably start with targeting the Canadian universities first. What was the second part of your
Hmm.
question?
So yeah, I wanted to know specifically what are the topics of the infographic videos or posts that you're putting on social media? What do they talk about? And are there specific topics that you're trying to
Yeah,
emphasize?
so once again, it comes down to our three main pillars, which is the focus of mine commodities in our everyday life. So how we use,
Hmm.
like for example, copper, steel, titanium in our everyday lives. And then we focus on technology and safety advancements within the industry. So we talk about things like the connected worker using IoT to help keep them safe, or we would talk about autonomous haul trucks or drones in mining, AI, all those big buzzwords which mining is actually making a push towards. And then
Right.
thirdly is the environmental conservation side. So one video that we haven't released yet, but we're working on, is how mining contributes to UN's sustainable development goals. So the UN put together, I think it
Oh,
was
interesting.
17 goals that if we were to meet these goals, we would have a more prosperous world for everyone to live in. And specifically, mining plays a role in that. We also talk about what happens to a mine after it's closed. So we talk about like the reclamation procedures and how the land would be returned back to its original state. So those are our
Right.
three main pillars of focus. And you had like one more part to that question, right?
Um, the last question was, what is the aim of your organization in terms of the end goal? Like, is there a specific metric that measures how well you're doing in terms of changing the public's perception of mining?
Yes, that's a good question. Like this is a question that I've been asking myself since day one. Um, I guess there's no like one true metric that would properly define how perception has changed. But in general, we try to see how people react to our videos, seeing the views, comments, and likes. I guess some other
Hmm.
thing that we could do is like make a poll of, I guess like a random group of people and see what they think about mining. But it's really hard to like correlate how our videos change their perception specifically, unless maybe we do like a focus group, like where we show them a video and ask them about it afterwards. Maybe it's something we could
Hmm.
do in the future, but for now, it's just um, pushing our videos out um, as wide as possible, and maybe something in the comments will tell us like if they learned something new or not. We are actually going to be expanding a little bit more beyond just making videos, and we're going to have a little more in-depth educational platform similar to TED Ed, where people can take quizzes and
Right.
uh, engage in discussions as well.
I want to talk about how you started the organization initially. I know you went through a competition, and you won that
Hmm.
competition, and you had some financial support and guidance in terms of the direction of the organization. Can you tell us about some of the processes you went through, as a student, to build up this organization?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess a little bit of background is that the mining industry in general overall realize that they have a poor image in the public's eyes. I guess even after, or it's not even after, but yeah, as I completed the competition and between then and now, I've been seeing more and more people within the industry talking about how we need to change the public's perception of mining. So it's been a focus of the mining industry for a while, and then more specifically to
Mhm.
the competition itself. So the competition was hosted by SME, which is U.S. Mining uh, Professional Association, um, and then within SME they have a branch called Move Mining, which is specifically to change the public's perception of mining. So we entered that contest, I think, yeah, summer of 2018, but there's like
Mhm.
different stages, and then the final competition was in February in 2019. Um, so we have to like write out like our ideas, like our proposals, get it reviewed, and then in the final round, we would go to a panel of live judges, and we would present our ideas, and then answer the Q and A's. So it's sort of like Shark Tank if you think about it. So there's
Right.
that. From that, we won 5,000 US dollars in grants. Uh, but the one of the competition hosts or sponsors, Komatsu, actually gave us an additional $5,000 for us to put towards our cause. And then afterwards, um, I worked with our we went pretty lean, so we just went with our original group of three, and we just started um, writing our scripts, creating the videos, and then marketing it out. Personally, I've always tinkered with like video production and social media marketing, so I set out the pathway strategies for our team, and they just helped me execute. Um, and
Hmm.
then I realized that if I wanted to grow the organization, I'm going to have to rely on more people, so that I could focus on these growth
Right.
pathways. So then that's when I started hiring. I think it's like mainly university students. So I like created role postings, and then I submitted to the co-op portals um, for universities around Canada. Um, and I think so that took that started in around, I think, like March of this year, March or April. So during COVID time. So luckily we weren't too affected because we do everything online. Um,
Right.
and then yeah, we started bringing on people on board one by one. But what I found was that there was quite a bit of turnover where people would join for like a few months, then they got too busy for whatever reason, and they have to quit. And so that was kind of frustrating because you bring people on, you train them, and then they leave, and then you have to go hire another person. So that just slow things down.
Yeah.
Um, so then I realized as that was happening that initially I was trying to target to put out a video once every 2 weeks. So I dialed that down to maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks. And that just gave me more time to focus on like hiring and getting people trained. uh, and then very recently I realized that like because I just at that time initially I was just telling people what to do and how to do mostly just through text or emails. What
Yeah.
and then what I realized is I probably need to get them a little bit more engaged. And so what I've actually am doing now is hosting biweekly team meetings where we could share what we've been working on. I could give updates to the team, um, things like that. That just gets people a little bit more engaged in the organization. So we're currently at I think around 7 or 8 people. There's people like creating posts, helping like creating social media posts, managing social media, and then we have a few translators. Uh, and then we're
Okay.
very recently bringing some advisors on board as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask because it seems like now that your organization is about to grow, you've obviously moved on to a more management role and more, creative
Hmm.
director role, where you're managing your own team and you have to, find your own talents that can help your organization. My question was going to be, what are some of the challenges in running the organization? And you've pointed out some challenges there. I guess then how have you transformed and grown as a young engineer and a young person leading an organization? How has this experience helped you specifically? And I ask because I feel like there might be a lot of young people out here who want to run their own, similar organization, changing the perception of a profession of their own, or running an educational organization in general. Um, what are some of the benefits of doing
I
something
think
like this?
what has appeared to me to be really important is your management of people. See,
Hmm.
like for example, I've been hiring people that aren't strictly in mining engineering that maybe not they don't have a mining background, but some of them are actually really passionate about this mining to me initiative. Um, and then another thing that I've learned is that I guess at least if you're starting like a nonprofit organization, people aren't paid to work. So you really have to listen to or I guess be flexible about like how much work you're giving them, you're assigning to them, and you should always try to work towards like a common agreement where
Right.
you're not overwhelming with too much work, but you're also not giving them too less work to the point where they're not contributing to your organization or they don't feel worthy, or like they don't feel like they're strong enough to take on that amount of work.
For sure, for sure. That's all really good advice, especially for again, young person who's like just starting their career. You really have to build that relationship up and earn the trust of the team you're managing, because you might be needing the expertise of someone who has more experience in industry, or the specific thing that you hired them for, and you really need to sort of build that relationship and sort of negotiate, right? Like that,
Yeah.
like some of the objectives that they have to reach without even having compensation. So yeah, like think this is a really good experience in terms of building that interpersonal skill. Kwan, we're nearing the tail end of our episode. I wanted to ask, like, how can people or society today learn more about mining? Of course, mining to me is a really good resource. But what are some of the other resources, or what are some of the activities or workshops that we can do that are available, so we can learn more about your field of work and how we are all impacted by mining, and especially how with technology changing, we can keep up with what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, so mining to me, of course, is going to be a good place to start. I
Hmm.
personally have my own YouTube channel where I talk about the mining engineering as a career. So you could, I'm assuming you'll have like show notes where I can post links. So you can search
Hmm.
me up on YouTube. Search up Kwan Fung mining engineering. Like, there's not a lot of YouTube channels about mining engineering,
Hmm.
so I think I'll be easy to find, and that's one of the reasons why I started the channel is because there's not a lot of content out there on mining engineering.
Hmm.
The second place would be a blog called The Intelligent Miner, and it's actually this really great blog where they talk about the hot topics of the mining industry. So, for example, all the topics we just talked about, like how like technology in mining, environmental conservation in mining, all the hottest trends in mining. And then she breaks it down into this really easy to understand uh, article for people to read, and you don't need to have any technical knowledge in mining. And it's just she talks about all these great topics and interviews all the leaders within the mining industry, and she does a great job just detailing out what mining is about.
Great. I think our listeners should really go and check that out if you want to learn more about the mining industry and how you're affected in your everyday lives. Kwan, where can we find Mining to Me on social media?
Yeah, at Mining to Me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're gonna start Twitter and possibly TikTok soon.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Possibly. I still
Yeah.
haven't figured that out totally, but
Mhm.
I'm leaning towards it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight on what you do and the mining industry. It's really inspiring to see how it all started from an Air Cadet Youth Program, and you got into UBC mining engineering, and you're so passionate about your studies and your field of work that you want to share that with our society now. So we're really grateful for your work, and best of luck moving forward with Mining to Me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this has been a really great interview.
Thank you so much, Kwan. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Novice Experience, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Novice Experience. Our theme song is Concrete Jungle by Audio Binger. You can find us or reach out on social media at The Novice Exp. That's The Novice EXP. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on all your podcast listening platforms. Talk to you next time.